Okay, welcome to another edition of International Soccer Break. I'm your host, Sahil, here with Rahi and Roy. And you've heard from us from some other teams across the globe. So now we got to talk USA. And I'm wearing my shirt kind of meekly, but still decided I should wear it.
How patriotic.
Yeah, very patriotic. I think we took a while to get to this because there's so much to unpack, and I almost didn't want to talk about this. I didn't want to address what happened over the course of two legs. I didn't want to address what was another remarkable failure in Trinidad and Tobago. We just cannot win there. We cannot even
Same
tie
scoreline,
there.
man.
It's the same scoreline. And the same kind of things too. Goalkeeping mistakes. I mean, the whole thing. It took me a while to process what happened. And it took me a while to accept that you and I, Roy, had a conversation about how this team is in a different place. Don't think about those days. Don't think about 2017. And we just had a repeat. Almost a carbon copy of 2017. Better players, better team, better performances over the past few years. And yet, in Trinidad, in the same situation, these players and this team resembled very much the same thing we saw in Cuba on that fateful night.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what the frustrating thing about this is? I think Serginho Dest saved Berhalter's job. I think it is because they played with 10 players. Berhalter has an excuse. Everyone has an excuse. The focus is on him. Oh, that's why we lost. Yes, it was a bad performance, but we probably would have won with 11. I don't know. So I don't know. With that goalkeeping performance, with Cameron Carter-Vickers playing the way he played, with our attack just being listless, I don't think we would have won that game with 11. I don't think we would have won that game with 12 with a referee on our side. It's something, I don't know if it's Cuba. I don't know if it's Berhalter. I don't know if it's a mix of everything right now. But this was a rough watch, and it was a bit haunting to watch. Took me back.
So I'll point out one thing, and then let's get into some of the problems we talked about. The only difference this time around is we get through despite all of the problems against Trinidad. Yeah. And I think that that's one silver lining to all this. You know, last time around, this happened. We didn't make it through to the tournament. This time we were able to scrape through basically because of maybe about 7 or 8 minutes in Austin. And that was really the difference. And maybe Anthony Robinson's goal in Trinidad and a shocking miss by Nathaniel James, I believe his name is, on Trinidad on a one-on-one with Matt Turner. So a couple of things went our way, and that's the reason we're in Copa America.
Yeah, and we did it without help as well, unlike Mexico. We did it without help. Mexico needed the refs. They needed the region. They needed, I don't know if the television networks got involved with that game, but there's something to be said about what happened in the Mexico versus Honduras game. But we did it without help. There is some silver lining here. We're in Copa America. It's what we wanted. It's what we expected. And we're there. It wasn't pretty. It was disgusting, to be honest. It was nightmare inducing. I didn't sleep the night after, but we're in Copa America. We'll get to see our boys in a major tournament.
It's a fair point to be made. We actually did get through, and that there is something to be taken from that. Look at Mexico, look at Canada, right? So we actually did get through. I don't think we should be comparing ourselves to those teams anymore. And I've said it for the past year that we should be looking at bigger fish. That's where we should be targeting. But hey, we made it through. That's the only silver lining.
Okay. Now, I will open the floor to you guys to discuss all the things that went wrong against Trinidad. And, you know, going from the awful performance, 80 minutes of the first game, to Dest getting a red card. So I got to ask this question, right? We beat Canada in the Nations League final earlier this year, had a pretty decent group stage of the World Cup. What's going on with the U.S. men's national team?
Go for it, Rocky. Go for it, Rocky.
I want to be angry. I want to be angry. But I'm not angry. I'm worried. I'm scared, and I'm concerned. Because it's not that this team is falling apart. That suggests that they were great and now they're crumbling. They're just not improving. That's the biggest problem, is that we've reached a point where we're no longer improving. And in this second cycle now with Greg Berhalter, it has been very short, but we've seen very little in the way of improvement from players, from tactical perspective, from a performance perspective, from a result perspective. So the challenge becomes now, how do we get this team to improve? And it's tough for these players. They're all in difficult club situations, right? Dest has started to play well for his club. Matt Turner no longer starting. They're all in these difficult moments, and you hope that when they come to the national team, it gives them the confidence to go back and take on these challenges they have at their club. And they're not getting that, and they're getting almost the opposite, right? So I'm worried about our players' development. I'm worried about the leadership from management. And at this point, I don't see any clear direction or ideas for where this team can go. And that's a big, big, big problem. So I don't think the players are being set up to succeed, Roy.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because are things falling apart? That would suggest that things were together. Things were good. In my view, towards the end of Berhalter's reign, his last reign, things were pretty good.
Yeah.
We did pretty good at the World Cup. We seemed to be together. We seemed to be a unit, minus all the Gio Reyna debacle, of course. But we were getting results. We were playing relatively well for the most part. We've regressed quite a bit since then. These past games have been very poor. The Trinidad games were two of the worst games over the past years. They were disastrous. We repeated Cuba.
We lost to Panama on the road in qualifiers. We lost to Canada on the road. This is not that different than what we've seen before.
It's not new, but these feel worse. And I think Dest outbursts, that ridiculous, bratty, entitled outburst, it was insane watching it. Kicking the ball on its own is something a player should say, oh, I screwed up. I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry, ref. Let me back up. Hey, give me the yellow, fine. He tripled down. He tripled down, even with the players around him telling him to STFU, man. Cut this out. Cut this out. Turner running up to him, screaming at him. Tim Ream running up to him, screaming at him. In the press conference, Tim Ream pulled a Greg Berhalter. He exposed to the world the problems within the U.S. men's national team. He says, I can't tell you the things that we told Serginho Dest in the locker room, but it was incredibly unfair. It was incredibly selfish. He exposed the guy. And I don't know if I agree with Tim Ream on this. I think this should be settled within the team. Same feedback for Berhalter. But that move was terrible. I think it's a sign of something awry within the team. It comes shortly after the Gio Reyna stuff. There's something funny going on. That and Balogun just simply not performing for this team. Balogun, for me, is not an element on this team.
I would agree with Roy. And I think it's interesting because we saw this team so together during the Nations League finals, right? Rahi, you and I were in Vegas, and it was a team that was super together at that time. And since then, obviously, there was the Gold Cup loss to Panama, not this team, but some members of this team. And then the Germany friendly, and now this. And this is sort of, they're heading in the wrong direction. And the thing I wanted to point out is I noticed this on the field. A lot of times when a player's down, the other players don't go pick him up. Like there was a time when I saw this, like during the game, Balogun was down. No one's going up to him and kind of like helping him get up. The Dest situation was very weird because these guys are telling him, hey, calm down. And he's not listening to any of them.
Nope.
And then after that, instead of kind of saying what Berhalter said, which was, a player made a dumb decision, but it'll never happen again. You have the Tim Ream situation, which tells me like everything might not be right in that locker room anymore.
Yep.
Yeah. There's a lack of leadership. I don't love calling out a player. I get it. It was a silly decision. But a lot of that, what came out after that, and you look at even media commentators, was this is an incredibly selfish performance from Dest, something I've never seen in the sport. Timeout. Remember Clint Dempsey and that whole red card thing he did for Seattle? We've seen it from players before. Yeah, maybe not for the national team, but this happens, right? I don't love placing the entire blame for a performance on one player. It was a bad performance over 2 legs. Yes, it was a ridiculous, dumb, stupid decision. I get that. But he's a kid. He's talked a little bit about the struggles he'd had, with pressure and mentally being from club to club at Barcelona. You need to build these guys up and not take them down. And my problem is I don't see any leadership coming from the top.
Yeah, but we can't compare Dest to Dempsey. Dempsey was a madman. He was a loose plug. He was a fiery character. Dest has not once done this in Europe, and he won't do this in Europe because he respects his teammates at PSV. He respects the competition. He respects the league. He respects everything about Europe. Here, he comes and plays for the US. Just seems like he doesn't give a crap. He doesn't give a crap. He's not listening to his teammates. He's not listening to his captain. He's not paying attention to his coach. He's having this ridiculous, childish outburst. I'm not worried about Dest. He's going to recover. He might not do it again, but I'm worried about what brought him to do that. What brought him to react in that way? What's going on within that team?
100%.
And in his head, his view of his own teammates, what's going on?
100%. Why is the frustration so high in a game where, they haven't played well, but they're going to get through, right? What is going on? And that to me is a signal of Greg Berhalter first cycle versus Greg Berhalter second cycle. To me, looks like a different sort of sense of leadership. I don't know that the respect is there anymore. And that's not all on him, right? He's been put in a difficult situation by what's happened and by the federation sort of then just hiring him again. I think that these players at this stage of their careers need somebody who's a disciplinarian, not because they need to be disciplined, but they need to feel there's direction. They need to have a sense of leadership that comes from the coach, not from the players. Who on this team is going to lead? There's no captain-like player on this team.
That was a very telling point because Dest wasn't the one playing defense on Alvin Jones. He got the red card, but Cameron Carter-Vickers, Dest is not to blame for Cameron Carter-Vickers not being able to handle Alvin Jones. Dest is not to blame for Matt Turner not being able to handle a free kick. So it was weird because when that happened, the whole mentality sunk and the commentators are, Dest to blame. Is Dest on the field right now? Is he playing in goal? I don't get it. Like, it's weird to me.
Yeah. I completely agree. I mean, the Carter Vickers on the first goal, that's just poor defending. And the free kick, I mean, we could talk about that for days, but there's no way that should ever be remotely close to going in. So, I mean, I completely agree with you. And Dest, by the way, who assists the goal? If I'm not mistaken, that was Serginho Dest, right?
Yeah.
So it's easy to blame him for a silly decision.
Yeah.
But there's one player on this team I trust right now, and that's Anthony Robinson.
As a goalie, what the heck is going on with Matt Turner? I mean, I think we need to talk about this because that's sort of like a metaphor for the team as a whole. This was a guy who we thought was like getting close to being a world-class goalie. Yep. And now we're here. And I know you're a goalkeeper. What's going on?
It's 100% emotional. It's 100% mental, and it's 100% a confidence issue. When a goalie is lacking in confidence, he's not going to be decisive. He's not going to, like you saw on his on the 2 goals. It was indecision. It was, do I step here? Do I dive now? Do I put my arms out? It's that indecision that leads to him being a terrible goalkeeper. A goalkeeper at this level cannot have indecision, cannot think twice, cannot be lacking in confidence, because you could tell in a second when a goalkeeper is lacking in confidence. He's going to screw up.
But he's going to screw up. He's not. I mean, we know he is, in fact, most times an excellent goalkeeper, except for over the recent past. He's been incredible at times for the U.S., right? And he clearly isn't that right now.
I don't know if his head is in the right place, man. I think he needs to figure this out because he's lost the job at Nottingham. He's lost the job. He is not going to recover that job anytime soon unless there's an injury. And that must be killing him because he just experienced that at Arsenal, a much bigger club. Now he's experienced it at Nottingham, a much smaller club. And that must be very, very hard for a player, especially a goalkeeper.
Let's finish with this. So okay, this is wrapped up now. You know, where we have to be in the CONCACAF Nations League semifinal against Jamaica. But what do we need to do between now and then?
What don't we need to do is the question. No, I mean, I think the unfortunate thing between now and then, because of the way we're set up from a management perspective, it's really on these players to go back to their clubs and find a way to be resilient, right? And we're going to get Christian Pulisic, who is the best example at this point of someone who's resilient, along with Weston McKennie. Those are two players who have been through the downs and now are on the other side of it in a lot of ways. That'll be helpful. And hopefully they can serve as inspiration for the rest of these players. But it's really going to be on the players. Can they take the next step? Can they get through these down patches? They're all in down patches, aside from those two. And I don't know. Beyond that, I can't tell you anything from a management perspective or from a U.S. soccer perspective. Nothing's going to get done, right? I don't think the team top down is going to do anything for these guys. So it's on them. And that's just individual.
Yep. I think for me, it's developing some damn character, man. These players.
How do you do that?
Yeah, the players have to look internally and just ask themselves some serious questions about who they are as professionals, who they are as athletes, and start to make changes, because this team is having a branding issue and it's affecting the way they play. We've seen whiny, we seem complainy, we seem bratty, we seem immature. And yes, we're young, but this is unacceptable at a professional level. We are all professionals in different fields. Imagine us being whiny. Imagine us throwing tantrums. Imagine us calling our parents to call our bosses. This is freaking ridiculous what's happening. And we're acting like it's okay. We're acting like, oh, it's fine. It's not. These players need to develop some grit, oh man, I want to use a lot of different words here. But I'm going to hold back. But they just need to step it up and stop acting like little kids.
Yep. If you do that at work, your boss would figure a way out to make sure you don't do that. Look at if you haven't got a chance, watch. If you haven't got a chance, watch Emma Hayes, the new manager for the U.S. women's team. Watch her post-game speeches. She's to Chelsea, where she used to manage. Listen to what she says about expectations, about how you have to play for that club. The U.S. women's national team made a very good hire, in my opinion, and they hired a coach who's going to demand respect from those players. Right now, there's no one on the field, on the sideline, in the executive box at U.S. Soccer that does that. It could be a player that does it. It could be a manager that does it. But right now, nobody like that exists. And we need to find that person.
Yep.
Roy, go find him.
No, it's
right,
Roy.
It's Roy. Looking around, man.
It's Roy. Look in the mirror. It's Roy right there.
Roy's ready. To be honest, I think.
It could be Pulisic, right? It's not his personality. It could be Weston McKennie. It could be some. You've seen teams where players do that, right? They take on the role of a larger than life character. We need somebody, and I don't know who it's going to be.
Do you think these guys are going to do? I agree with Roy here. Are any of these guys capable of doing that?
Not even close. Not even close.
There's like Clint Dempsey has mentioned, some of the other players have mentioned, the previous captains as well. They aren't going to put up with this, right? So maybe it's on Pulisic or maybe Tyler Adams when he comes back to be like, guys, this BS has got to stop.
I'm glad you brought up Tyler Adams. He might be the only one.
I don't know.
He may be the only one.
That's us grasping at straws, man. I think he's has decent leadership qualities. He's fun on the field. He gets in little arguments, but that's not what we're looking for.
You need to be good is the thing. In order to lead, you need to be good, right? So the challenge for Tim Ream, he's a very good player now, but he hasn't been in the setup for long enough to have that impact, right? Somebody like a Pulisic or a Weston McKennie or Tyler Adams, if he's back in it, who's young and played with the team for a while and is important from a performance level, that's somebody that has to be the one to lead, because otherwise players don't respect that, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying Ream hasn't been good. He just hasn't been around long enough.
Yep. I just don't know if we have a player on this roster now. I think McKennie is perceived as a little lazy. He's a goofball. Tyler Adams is little arguments on the field, pushing players around. He's got this funky swag, but there's no tough, no nonsense, no BS character on this team that strikes fear.
So the one, I actually think Christian Pulisic might have an opportunity. Watch that goal against Germany again. Watch the mentality, right? Watch, he has that chance that he misses. He thinks it's a penalty. And then he says, guys, I'm going to score. He basically says, watch me. Watch me.
Yeah.
And that's what he did. There's no player on the team that can do that. And that attitude, even if he doesn't lead vocally, that attitude, I haven't seen that from anyone else since Landon. And maybe Claire.
I agree. Yeah. But he's injured 6 months out of the year, buddy. So let's get a captain who's there. All right.
Well, Christian Pulisic, it's your turn to step up. Maybe it's his time to actually come out there and act like a captain's supposed to. He's the one who's been through Cuba. You know, he's been through the ups and downs. He avoided this, and so they made it through despite him. But now it's time to step in there. So, all right,
I vote for him. I vote for him.
Yeah. We will finish there and take a little bit of a break from the U.S. men's team. The U.S. women's team do have a game coming up. Maybe that'll be a more promising endeavor. But for now, I will go ahead and say it because we did make it through despite all the nonsense past Trinidad, through to Copa America, through the Nations League semifinals. So I will say, go USA. Let's get it done. Let's improve. Let's do all the things we talked about. Let's go.
US Twitter, can we stop with the qualified graphic? Like, that's like, come on. Qualified?